Revealed, 8 sinister true horror stories that haunted lives, discover the unexplained cursed. In the quaint suburb of Maplewood, where manicured lawns and picket fences painted a picture of idyllic living, Amy's world felt suffocating. Each night began the same way, cradling her 2 children, tucking them in with stories of whimsical adventures and brave heroes. But as she slipped away from their peaceful slumber, the shadows waiting outside whispered secrets that clawed at her heart. Staring out her car window, the evening streets looked almost too quiet. Her breath quickened as she noticed her neighbors peeking through their curtains, exchanging glances that sent a chill racing down her spine. Was she imagining it? The delivery truck parked unnaturally close, its logo unnervingly familiar, seemed to loom, an unwelcome presence waiting for something sinister to unfold. Each shift she worked only fed her unease. The abandoned school at the end of the block stood as a grim sentinel, its cracked windows sagging like the weight of lost hopes. Once a beacon of dreams, it had become a gathering site for whispered tales of families vanishing, swallowed by the very fabric of Maplewood. The tension thickened as a chilling story emerged, the man in the shadows, a figure spoken of in hushed tones, prowling the streets when darkness claimed all. "Mom, can we keep the lights on?" her daughter had asked, her innocent face painted with trepidation as shadows danced in their home. It broke Amy's heart knowing her fears had seeped into their little lives. But could she protect them? 3 times she approached the police, only to be brushed aside. "Just tired, Ma am." "You're imagining things," one officer shrugged, unchecked skepticism laced in his voice. The isolation was unbearable. She could feel panic knotting in her stomach, the abyss of anxiety, stretching out before her, dark and relentless, the fear encroached with each anxious night. Rumors of a wicked school principal had taken root in her mind. How could someone so trusted harbor such darkness? Driven by a mother's instinct, she began digging. The more she searched, the tighter the noose of dread squeezed around her throat. Cryptic symbols in playgrounds, neglected whispers threaded through neighborhood chats, and nervous laughter that felt like a taunt, knit a web of secrets they all shared but never dared to voice. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every clue unearthed intensified the panic that clawed at her sanity. Just when she was starting to piece it together, the shadows began to shift. Night descended, cold tendrils wrapping around their cozy home. It was as if the darkness knew her fear and sought to exploit it. As she peered outside, dread coiling in her gut, she caught a fleeting movement at the edge of her yard. Someone was there, lurking, a shadow thicker than night itself, creeping toward the window where her children slept, oblivious to the danger looming ever closer. In that terrifying moment, Amy faced the abyss. Confront the shadows or blind herself to the truth? What if these disappearances weren't just tales? What if the very community she relied on was the true monster hiding behind the smile of normalcy? As the figure drifted closer, all Amy knew was this: she had to act, for the sake of her children, whose futures hung in the balance. Amy's heart raced as she blinked, trying to clear her vision. The figure remained, an obscured mass blending into the darkness of the night. Shadows clung to it like a second skin. Terror coursed through her veins, a chilling reminder of her own mortality. What if she was too late? Throwing caution to the wind, she barely took a moment to think. Grabbing the baseball bat from the corner of the room where it sat languidly, a relic of her children's playful games, she whispered a prayer for courage. Her breath came quick, shallow, as she walked toward the window, heart pounding like a wild drum. With a swift motion, she yanked back the curtain, expecting to confront a stranger, perhaps a thief plotting his move. But the sight that met her chilled her blood. The figure was only a few feet away now, its face hidden by a grotesque mask, a haunting reminder of a twisted parody of innocence. The darkness wrapped around it, and the eyes glinted with something sinister. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. The figure stood still, a statue of menace, before taking a small step back. Was it fear? Or was this a game to them? Silently, it raised a hand, pointing toward her children's room. Panic clawed at her throat as she pivoted, instinctively moving to shield their sleeping forms. "Get away from my kids!" she screamed, lunging toward the door, ready to protect them at all costs. As she reached for the handle, she glanced back to find the figure had vanished into the inky blackness of the night, leaving nothing but an echoing silence that felt heavy in the air. The hairs on her arms stood on end. Had she just imagined it? The mask, the figure, it felt too vivid to be a trick of her mind. Heart pounding, she crept into the children's room. They were still sound asleep, blissfully unaware of the nightmare lurking just outside their window. With shaky breaths, she knelt beside them, resting her head on the side of her daughter's bed. She needed to keep them safe. She needed answers. Days passed, and the figure became an obsession. Each night she would wait, peering through curtains, eyes trained on the darkness, searching for that inscrutable silhouette to return. The nights dragged on, the shadows deepening with each passing whisper in the wind. Morning light felt like a lie, everything bright and cheerful, yet beneath it lay a dark current that threatened to pull her under. She turned to the internet, searching for answers, but found only dead ends, stale stories of other disappearances in the town. That abandoned school came to haunt her thoughts, each cracked window now seeming like an eye staring back at her, daring her to confront it. Then, one chilly evening, she found a community thread discussing the old principal. A name surfaced: Mr. Hastings. The more she read, the more her skin crawled. Tales of strange ceremonies during the dead of night, of parents who had disappeared after raising concerns. An ugly pattern she couldn't ignore. But deep down, one question loomed larger than all others. What was she willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth? With the last glimpse of sunlight fading, she resolved to confront the fears head-on. As she stepped out into the night, ready to delve into the mysteries surrounding Maplewood, the streetlights flickered ominously, casting dancing shadows that twisted and turned. Who was waiting for her in the darkness? But she had to know. Trudging along the path toward the school, the air grew heavy. The silence was deafening. Was she truly alone? And as she approached the decrepit entrance, the door creaked open, as if inviting her to step inside. What awaited her beyond the threshold? Would she unravel the darkness or become part of it? The air was thick, as if the darkness itself had come alive, curling around Amy like a living shroud. Each step echoed unnaturally against the cracked concrete of the old school entrance, chilling her to the bone. She hesitated, the bat in her grip feeling like a feeble protection against whatever horrors lay within. The door creaked open wider, an invitation masked as a threat. She stepped inside, heart thudding like a war drum, the smell of dampness and decay hitting her like a wave. The dim light filtering through grimy windows cast unsettling patterns on the walls, illusions of movement that seemed to crawl just out of her sight. She felt the weight of 1,000 lost souls bearing down on her, suffocating and all too real. "Mr. Hastings?" she whispered, her voice barely escaping her throat. The stillness swallowed it whole. No response, no sign of life. She took another step forward, the floorboards creaking ominously beneath her feet. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, and she fought the urge to turn back. Remembering the stories she had read, Amy made her way to the principal's office. A sense of dread hung in the air, thick and oppressive. Was she really seeking answers, or had the figure outside the window pulled her into a trap? She brushed her fingers against the peeling paint and felt a chill run through her. Then she noticed a glimmering object half buried in the dust by the office door. When she bent down to pick it up, her heart dropped. A cracked mirror, its surface marred and warped, reflected her wide eyes. But it wasn't just her reflection staring back. Shadows shifted just behind her, twisting and reaching like dark hands seeking to pull her into the depths. She spun around, and nothing was there. Just the silence pressing in tighter. A whisper brushed past her ear, soft and malevolent. Find them. The words felt like a cold breath against her neck. Panic surged. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she backed away towards the door, but something deep inside her held her in place. The helplessness of those who disappeared gnawed at her resolve. Amy's breath became ragged as she turned back to the mirror, forcing herself to look. What do you want? She demanded, her voice quaking. It flickered to life, showing not just her reflection now but a series of images, a group of children, laughter echoing, their faces glowing with innocence. Then the scene twisted, and there was darkness, screams, faces twisted in pure horror. She stumbled backward, her heart racing. The very air felt stifling, as if the shadows were breathing. She heard a faint sound, a distant echo of laughter mixed with cries, crying children. The realization hit her hard, drawing all the color from her face. Were these souls still trapped within the walls of this forsaken place? As dread settled, a loud crash resonated from somewhere deep within the school. The laughter morphed into howls, and desperation clawed at her stomach. Get out, the cold voice urged again, louder, more insistent, but Amy was not just an observer anymore, she was a participant in this haunting. She had to go deeper. She took a deep breath and pressed on, moving toward the noise, determined to uncover the truth hidden in the shadows. With each step, the darkness felt thicker, harder to penetrate, as if it had eyes that watched her every move. What secrets were hidden in those walls? And what was the true cost of uncovering them? A crashing noise echoed once more, this time from behind her. She whipped around, bat raised, heart aflame with adrenaline. And then she saw it, a figure in the doorway, its grotesque mask staring directly at her, eyes gleaming with an unholy light. What did it want from her? The terror was alive now, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. As she stood frozen, the unearthly silence was shattered. A scream erupted from the depths of the school, raw and desperate, as though the darkness itself was fighting back. What horror had she awakened? Would she manage to save her children, or would she become yet another whisper in the dark? The figure shifted, its movements unnaturally fluid, inching closer while its mask glinted ominously in the sparse light. Amy's heart raced as she backed away, the heavy bat slipping from her sweaty grip. She felt like prey cornered by a predator. What are you? She stammered, her voice barely more than a choked whisper. The figure remained silent, but its presence seeped into her bones, an electric tension crackling in the air. Before she could gather her wits, the figure lunged forward, a blur of darkness. Amy bolted, throwing herself through the open door of the principal's office. She stumbled in, slamming the door shut behind her and pressing her back against it, breathless and wild-eyed. Panic surged as she surveyed the office. The dim room was cluttered with decaying documents and forgotten memories. Papers that had once held importance lay scattered, yellowed and fragile, tinged with mold. The tension hung thick, the shadows staring back at her, mocking her very presence. She needed a plan, hiding wouldn't save her. With steely resolve, she turned her attention back to the mirror. There it was, still glimmering strangely in the gloom. If it held answers, she could exploit it. Who were those children? Where was Mr. Hastings? She hesitated, then stepped closer, the images flickering in and out of focus, as if the mirror itself was a portal. What do you want? She shouted at her reflection, demanding answers that evaded her. Suddenly, the mirror rippled like disturbed water, and a chilling laugh broke the silence. The joyous childhood laughter echoed, but it twisted, warped into shrieks that clawed at her sanity. Amy staggered back, clutching her head as it felt like reality was tearing apart. Find them, save them, the voice pierced her, knotting in her chest. She looked back at the mirror. The faces were haunting, children's faces, eyes wide with fear, mouths open, screaming. The door rattled violently, pulling her attention back. An unholy scream pierced the air, shaking her to her core. Shouts swelled from beyond the door. They're here. They've come to play. The cries twisted her insides, sending shivers down her spine. It wasn't he the figure, it was something worse. With urgency tightening her throat, Amy grabbed the bat, steadied her breath, and swung the door open just enough to peek through the narrow gap. The hallway was dark as sin, shadows shifting as if alive, but she saw them, figures moving, ghostly children, wringing their hands in an expression of desperate need. They beckoned with silent cries. Was she truly seeing them, or were they figments of her fractured mind? "Help us," one child mouthed, their lips moving but no sound escaping. The air thickened, pressing around her. "You shouldn't be here," a familiar echo slashed through the air like a whip. Amy jerked back, glancing over her shoulder at the principal's desk. Mr. Hastings' nameplate lay there, untouched, but his spectral words swirled in the air like fog. She shook her head, desperate to escape the intoxicating pull toward those ghostly children. "What do you want from me?" In an instant, the laughter returned, louder and intertwined with howls of pain. The figure appeared again, looming over her from the hallway, blocking her escape. Its ghastly face twisted as it pointed towards the depths of the school. A deep instinct screamed at her to run. Still, another part urged her forward, deeper into the darkness. What was the truth behind this madness? Then, as if in answer to her silent pleading, a door creaked open farther down the hall. A flicker of light spilled across the floor like a beacon in that eternal night. Would it guide her to safety or plunge her further into torment? Amy's calloused heart surged. She was here for them, wherever they were. Whatever awaited in that light couldn't be worse than the chaos around her. She made her decision, adrenaline surging as she sprinted towards the light, but just as she stepped into the glow, the unmistakable sound of children's whispering wrapped around her, cold and taunting. Join us," the air crackled with unholy laughter, and the darkness reached out, desperate to pull her back. What fate awaited her in that shimmering light, and would she uncover the truth, or was she simply following the path into her own undoing? The light was blinding, yet inviting, pulling at her very core. Amy took a step, then another, unsure if she was walking toward salvation or doom. The laughter of the children faded into a whisper's echo, as though the darkness was unsure of her choice, testing her resolve. She reached the threshold of the door, the wood splintering under her touch, and in an edge of bravado, pushed it wide open. Inside was a vast room, bathed in an ethereal glow that sent prickles across her skin. Desks stood in neat rows, but the air was thick and heavy, pregnant with tension. Memories sat dormant in every crevice, shadows of those who had come before. "Help us," the whisper threaded through her mind again, entwined with a sensation of frantic urgency. It clawed at her heart, igniting a fire to find answers buried beneath layers of darkness. As she stepped inside, something struck her, a chill that wound around her like a snake. A figure peeled out of the shadows to her left. It was a girl, not much older than 10, with vacant eyes and disheveled hair. She clutched a tattered doll, its buttons missing, a vacant smile painted upon its face. "Please," the girl breathed, her voice a mere hollow breath. "You must hurry." "Where? Where do I go?" Amy stammered, exchanging glances between the girl and the ominous darkness just outside the room. The girl pointed a finger, trembling slightly. "Down to the basement. The others are waiting. You must save them before." "Before what?" Amy pressed, the girl's pleading gaze haunting her. But the girl only shook her head, retreating back into the shadows, whispering, "Before it's too late." The warning echoed through Amy's mind, a visceral nudge that stoked her apprehension. Was this part of the twisted game? She glanced back towards the doorway. The hallway loomed, dark and oppressive. Fear churned in her stomach. Steeling herself, Amy moved forward, following a flickering light at the end of another corridor, her footsteps muffled as though she were walking on marshmallows. Each step felt like a countdown to a reckoning. The laughter returned, haunting and bitter, ricocheting off the walls. Come and play, they cooed, their voices a sickening melody that made her skin crawl. The basement door was ajar, with shadows spilling out like ink. She'd have to confront the darkness, face whatever horrors lurked below. Amy swallowed hard, reaching for the doorknob with shaky hands. When she pushed it open, a wave of cold air rushed over her, mixing with the cacophony of childlike giggles that drifted up like smoke. Blinking away tears in her eyes, she stepped into the dimly lit abyss, an old staircase spiraling down into the unknown. Each step creaked ominously, and fear wrapped tighter around her heart. The air thinned, her pulse quickened. As she descended deeper, the shadows thickened, coalescing into shapes, whispers streaming through her mind like a broken record. Join us forever. Then she saw them. The outlines of children huddled together at the bottom of the staircase, eyes wide with a desperate hope. They looked just like the ones she'd seen in the mirror, yet more tangible, more real, with faces twisted in terror. Help us! They cried in unison, voices rising to a fever pitch. Amy hesitated on the last step, heart racing, lungs tightening. They were real. But something dark flickered behind them, a grotesque silhouette looming, watching her every move. Save them, a voice in the shadows hissed, dripping with malice. Or join us forever. The choice bore down on her like an anvil. Would she dare to step forward, or was the darkness far too inviting? The air thickened as she felt the weight of their stares and the encroaching shadow behind her. What would she sacrifice to save these children, and could she even trust what she was about to face? No turning back now. She took a deep breath, stepping toward the children who reached out with trembling hands, when suddenly the ground shook beneath her, and the silhouette roared. You won't succeed. In that moment, Amy realized it was all slipping away. Every second held the chance for salvation or obliteration. The chilling realization dawned. Fighting the darkness was going to cost her more than she ever anticipated. What truth lingered in the depths? What price would she pay to uncover the secrets of this twisted nightmare? The shadows shuddered, merging like living smoke, taunting her with their sinister dance. The children shrieked in desperation, their small hands stretching toward her as if each second was a battle against invisible chains dragging them back into the darkness. Amy felt her heart lurch in her chest. The moment stretched, a taut string ready to snap. Save us! They screamed. You have to save us! But the figure behind them pulsed with a dark energy, radiating dread that turned Amy's legs to jelly. She blinked, trying to gather her wits, the basement engulfing her in a chill that seeped into her bones. She had to choose: rush forward or retreat into the unknown. Please! The girl with the doll's whisper tore through the chaos, her presence an anchor in the swirling nightmare. We can't hold on much longer. Together, a wisp of a voice echoed, flitting from child to child. You must help us together. Instinct screamed at Amy to bolt, but something tethered her. The children's faces, desperate but filled with a flicker of hope, urged her forward. She took a step, then another, pushing past the edge of dread and into the swirling darkness. Stay back! The lurking silhouette hissed, reaching out with elongated fingers. Shadows twisted around it, thrumming with malice. You cannot save them. They belong to me. Stop! Amy yelled, feeling the words claw their way out. I won't let you take them. Fear surged through her chest, fueling her fight against the foreboding presence. Foolish girl! It thundered, and the basement trembled. Amy's feet stumbled over her resolve, nearly slipping on dust-strewn floorboards. Join me, or watch them fade. No! She shot back, her voice gaining strength. In that instant, she felt something inside her stir, a resolve she didn't know she had. Sparked by their cries, she rushed to the children, grasping their hands. One child, a boy with wide brown eyes, pulled her closer and whispered, "The soul's here, they are trapped by his darkness. We need the light." Light? Amy replied, panic rising in her throat. What light? The light of truth, the boy urged, pointing deeper into the shadows, where a faint glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Follow it. Another child insisted, "We have to go." The silhouette shrieked, its hands reaching out as the air thickened. It was furious. But time felt like a lover's embrace, both fleeting and eternal. As fear jogged Amy's heart, she hesitated, glancing back at the ravenous darkness, the yawning void that promised oblivion. The pressure mounted against her, but ignited by the desperate hope in the children's eyes, she steeled herself and raced toward the shimmering light. With each hurried step, the shadows screamed, clinging to her ankles like shackles. The laughter turned to manic howls, threatening to drown her in chaos. Yet the glow beckoned her closer, illuminating hidden truths. Just a little further. The children urged, their unity surrounding her like warmth in a blizzard. Suddenly, the darkness erupted, spilling out in a torrent of shadows, a wave crashing over her, forcing her to stumble. The boy fell to his knees, dragging her down with him. "No!" Amy cried, clawing at the floorboards as the grip of despair tightened. The other children scrambled, clutching her hands, but the darkness tugged, threatening to tear them apart. "Hold on!" she screamed, anchoring herself, feeling every heartbeat resonate between them, the terror uniting them against the relentless shadow. But from the void surged the silhouette, its face twisting into a ghastly snarl, and Amy felt the air crackle with its fury. "They will be mine!" It thundered, and then, the light flickered, a beacon illuminating the room momentarily. Would it reach them in time? Amy's heart raced. Would she fight for what remained, or succumb to the darkness that threatened to swallow all hope? If the light was truth, what would it uncover? The shadows surged closer, looming, ready to take everything. Could she save them before it was too late? As the darkness howled like a wounded beast, Amy knew she was on the cusp of a revelation that would change everything, but at what cost? The shadows pooled like liquid darkness, surging against Amy with a hunger that sent terror rippling through her. As the glow pulsed stronger, a flicker of courage ignited within her, urging her forward even as the void roared. She had to reach that light. "Hold on!" she shouted again, teeth gritted. The children's fingers tightened around hers, their small, cold hands anchoring her as the darkness clawed and wrestled for them. The eerie silhouette loomed, its form ever shifting, hungry for their despair. "You cannot battle me," it hissed, each word slithering through the air. "Give in, and they will be free." "No." The denial rang out from her like a clarion call. "They have hope." With every ounce of determination, she willed herself toward the light. Each step was a battle, as shadows spiraled and wrapped around her legs, ripping at her resolve. She felt their icy breath on her back, but the pressure from the children, the unity of their energy, pushed her deeper into the light's warmth. Almost there. The boy with wide brown eyes cried out, his voice cutting through the despair. The other children echoed, their chants blending into a primal song of hope. The silhouette recoiled, a snarl of rage rattling the basement walls. "You're all fools." It spat, flexing its fingers as shadows whipped forth, lashing out like snakes. The air thickened, Amy gasped as a sharp chill pierced her skin. It felt like ice needles scraping against her. Yet she pressed on, drawn by the warm illumination that hung just beyond the reach of the darkness. "Together," she urged, squeezing the children's hands tighter, feeling their fear mingle with her own. "We can do this." Suddenly, the glow surged, breaking the dark's grip for a fleeting moment. Amy's breath caught in her throat as they lunged toward the light, almost within grasp. Then the silhouette roared again, its fury erupting like a storm. "Join me, or be consumed." It bellowed, the air vibrating with its wrath. But the children's voices, rising in defiance, drowned it out. "We will not go with you," they chorused, their spirits igniting. Then, the shadows screeched, recoiling as if burned. For the first time, doubt flickered in the dark figure's gaze. Amy seized the moment, sprinting even faster, dragging the children along with her. She could hear the beast's growls twisting into shrieks of agony as the light expanded, revealing the basement's hidden depths. Old photographs lined the walls, bursting with frozen happiness, only to morph into haunting faces when touched by the glow. The connection between them grew stronger, the glow pulsing with the child's desperate hope merging with her own burning conviction. It was as if they were channeling their desires into something tangible. "Embrace the truth." The boy cried again, and in that moment, realization crashed over her like a tidal wave. Of course. She gasped. We must expose it. The shadows wailed, surging in brute force as if grasping at straws. But with a single word, a whisper of truth, what they were facing became clearer. Fear. She shouted, her revelation cutting through the chaos. In her heart, she felt the children rally beside her, their collective courage forging a barrier against the terror. Fear binds you. She echoed, the power of realization stitching them into a single heartbeat. Just as the darkness lunged, a brilliant flash erupted from the light behind them. Amy's surroundings twisted, swirling in a cacophony of color and sound. And then silence. The pressure melted away. She blinked. The basement had vanished, replaced by a field of white. The children were gone. Confusion wrapped around her, squeezing tight. Where? Panic washed over her, and her voice trembled. Did we make it? But as she started to breathe, a familiar chill crept down her spine. Shadows pooled at her feet, creeping, threatening to engulf her again. No. The words slipped from her lips, but a dark laugh echoed around her as familiar, haunting faces materialized from the void. What is happening? She gasped, dread settling heavily in her stomach. A figure stepped forward. From the shadows, its features obscured. You thought you could escape, little girl? The darkness feeds on fear, and yours is just beginning to ignite. Amy's heart raced. She was lost in a realm where truth twisted into terror, and each revelation brought her deeper into a nightmare. Now, let us see just how much fear can grow. She took a shaky breath, dread blooming within her. What awaited in the shadows this time? The air was thick with an oppressive presence, swirling shadows whispering around her like a raucous wind just out of reach. Amy's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage, each beat echoing her gnawing fear. The familiar faces lingered, their eyes hollow, mouths twitching in the semblance of haunting grins. Help us, they murmured, voices overlapping in a cacophony that made her skin crawl. Each plea felt like a cold finger tracing along her spine. She resisted the urge to cover her ears, knowing that the sound would drown her, pull her back into the void. Get away! She shouted, feeling weights pressing down on her lungs. Yet the figures closed in, shadows bending to their will. Their forms twisted, becoming grotesque mirrors of the children she had fought to save, reflecting the innocence that the darkness sought to consume. Join us, Amy, one child turned shadow beckoned, their voice dripping with false sweetness. No. She gasped, taking a step backward, the ground beneath her shifting as though it were alive. I want tea. But the darkness hungered for her defiance, feeding off her resistance. It coiled tighter, wrapping around her ankles like icy chains. The laughs morphed, echoing with a mix of amusement and malice. You think you can resist? This is just the beginning. The light was merely a flicker, a mirage. She looked around, shivering. Each shadow was a facet of her deepest fears: failure, abandonment, helplessness. They were memories long buried, creeping back to caress her soul, desperate to drive a wedge between her and the courage she had fought to uncover. I have not given up, Amy cried out, her voice trembling but somehow steady. I won't be afraid. A flicker ignited within her, bolstered by the children's fading chants that provided a spark amidst the swirling void. I expose you. She declared, her voice rising. You are nothing but a guise for fear. Your power lies within my mind. The shadows recoiled, briefly shrinking back, as if her words were sunlight piercing through smog. But they surged forward again, relentless. You cannot escape, Amy. We are bound by your very essence. The dark figure loomed, growing larger, its voice a rumbling thunder. A sense of clarity struck her. If they drew strength from her fear, she could weaponize it instead. The realization coursed through her like fire, igniting courage that pushed her muscles to tense and prepare for battle. Fear is a liar, she shouted, echoing her new truth. You thrive only because I allow it. You will not bind me. With a fierce determination, she turned her fear into a blade, sharpening it with every memory of her fight for freedom. The shadows stuttered, briefly losing cohesion. No. Stop. They hissed, wavering as if light itself threatened to break through. But hesitation flickered in their eyes, and Amy seized the moment. I will expose every shadow. You will not control me. Suddenly, a flash of light erupted from her core, blinding and fierce. She felt the power surging through her limbs, transforming her fear into a radiant shield. The shadows writhed and screamed, erupting into chaos as the light engulfed them. Yet just as victory slipped into her grasp, the darkness released a beastly howl, echoing through the void. You may banish us for now, but this is not over. We will find you. Amy shut her eyes tight, channeling the pulsating energy of the light. She felt the world shudder and spin. When she opened them again, she was standing disoriented back in her familiar home. But the walls pulsed with an eerie gloom. She staggered forward, heart racing, sensing a shift in the air. No longer just a fleeting presence, the shadows were entwined with her own home. The familiar smell of her mother's cooking hung in the air, yet it was tainted with an undercurrent of dread. Mom. She called uneasily, sensing the coldness creeping back, tightening its grip around her once more. Silence. Then a soft giggle echoed through the hallway, chilling her to bone. Join us again. Amy. The hairs on her arms stood upright as shadows flickered at the corners of her vision. They twisted, forming shapes and figures. Time was ticking. She turned, the heart-stopping question echoing in her mind. Could she escape this cycle? The house groaned, a deep, eerie sound that reverberated through the walls. Amy took a careful step forward, her senses heightened. The people who had once called this place home now felt like distant memories, each one twisted into a shadow that loomed over her. Mom. She whispered again, the name like a prayer on her lips. The echo of her voice faded, leaving only the unsettling giggle that pricked her skin like needles. It was a taunt. A reminder that even the comfort of home had turned sinister. Her heart raced, thumping hard enough to drown out any rational thought. She could feel the dark energy seeping into her skin, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Stay calm, she urged herself, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. She pinched the bridge of her nose, willing herself to breathe, to focus. Shaking fingers brushed against the wall, seeking the familiar texture of painted wood, but even the surface felt wrong, pulsating under her touch. Suddenly, her breath hitching, Amy turned on her heel. She was not alone. Figures danced in the periphery, skimming through the shadows, their faces twisted in grim smiles. She squinted, trying to catch a glimpse of any recognizable features, but they melted into the walls like ink bleeding into water. Help us, they whispered, drifting closer, their hollowed eyes locking onto her hungry. With a surge of panic, Amy stumbled backward, her foot catching on something. She fell hard, the floor biting into her palms as she gazed up, breathless. They were closer now, their features emerging and fading in phases like flickering images projected on a broken screen. Please, a voice, softer than the rest, slipped through the chaos. It was familiar, a child's voice she recognized from long ago. Her heart twisted painfully. Don't leave us. We're trapped just like you. Stop. She shouted, clenching her fists. You're not real. You're just shadows. But that little voice only giggled again, echoing cruelly. The shadows responded with a howl, advancing like a dark wave, hands reaching out to grasp her. She scrambled to her feet, adrenaline fueling her flight instinct. Get away. She screamed, racing down the hallway, the laughter growing louder, mocking her retreat. Each step felt heavier, the shadows clawed at her mind, whispering her fears back into the forefront. Doubt. Despair. They were woven into the fabric of her being, lurking just beneath her skin. Please, a voice called, less mocking now, desperate. Don't leave us. We can be whole again, together. In the living room, the familiar couch loomed before her, a grotesque memory. The scent of home, mixed with dread, twisted her stomach. Shadows churned, flickering in and out like old film, and for a moment, she was overwhelmed by a sudden urge to retreat into the safety of those memories, but beneath her resolve, an icy dread coiled tighter. She could feel the fear pulse around her, wrapped in a suffocating darkness. They were trying to lure her back in, to make her forget the fight she had just won. No. She gasped, forcing her legs to move. I will not succumb. I choose to face you. The shadows paused, momentarily confused. For a fleeting second, clarity bloomed in the chaos. She could see them, a tapestry of lost children, twisted by their own despair. Find the light, one whispered, before the darkness surged forward once more, a tide of screaming faces and clawing hands. The mantra echoed in her mind, just as fear tipped again. A sense of impending doom drew closer. Find the light. What did it mean? Could she muster enough resolve for another fight? Just then, she felt a pull, an invisible force urging her away from the shadows. But could she trust it? With a shudder, the shadows began to close in, their voices rising in frantic urgency. Join us. Please. But to join them would mean surrender. Amy clenched her jaw, eyes darting toward the flicker of light shining through a crack in the closed door at the end of the hallway. Would she dare to reach for it? Get away from me! She screamed, plunging forward, fear turned into fuel as she ran. Headlong toward the unknown. But what awaited her on the other side? The crack widened, a blinding light pouring through, drawing her closer, yet the darkness clung to her ankles, desperate to pull her back. She was standing at a crossroads: flee into the beacon or be consumed by the shadows. What choice would she make? As Amy sprinted toward the crack of light, uncertainty surged through her veins. The darkness writhed around her like a living entity, pulling and grasping at her limbs with icy fingers. You'll regret this. The voices shrieked, a chorus of anguish that reverberated in her mind. With a final heave, she broke free of the shadow's grip, tumbling through the crack and into a radiant expanse. The light enveloped her, warm and revitalizing, chasing away the malevolence that had clung to her. As she gasped for breath, the specters of the lost children spun away, their cries fading into echoes of anguish. Where am I? She murmured, blinking away tears. The light danced around her, bright and inviting. In that moment, she noticed something. The shimmering glow was not just bright, it was full of stories, fragments of forgotten memories weaving together in vibrant colors. She realized then that the light represented hope, the faint but persistent flicker that remained even amid the darkest nights. Find them, Amy, a voice whispered, familiar yet distant. It resonated within her, kindling the embers of her resolve. You must save them. Save who? She called out, the question swallowed by the ambient light. But deep down, she felt the pull of the children she had fought to redeem. They were still trapped, lost in a nightmare of fear. Summoning her courage, Amy stepped further into the light, feeling its warmth wrap around her like a protective blanket. As it enveloped her completely, images began to materialize: children with hollow eyes and fearful faces, lost in the shadows of Maplewood. They cried out to her. The flickering images surged into focus and she could see their unique features: the boy with brown eyes, the girl hugging her tattered doll, faces young and innocent, begging for rescue. She steadied her breath and willed herself to focus. I'm coming! She shouted, determination fueling her every step. A path unfurled in front of her, paved with golden rays, an invitation to embark on the journey to save them. Following the trail of light, Amy felt the shadows retreat behind her as she pushed ahead, the pulse of hope beating louder in her heart. I will find you! She called out, and the echoes of her voice cascaded through the shimmering landscape. At last, she emerged into a familiar scene: the abandoned school of Maplewood, but not as she had seen it before. This time, it was alive with vigor and color. Desks gleamed, and laughter reverberated through the hallways. Children were playing, their faces illuminated by an innocent glow. Help us! The trapped voices cried. Amy dashed forward, glancing around, her heart pounding. Where are you? She pleaded as she pushed open the door to the classroom. Inside, she saw them, the real children, lost spirits bound by fear, huddled together, their faces pale and drawn. "Please don't leave us," one of them whimpered. "I want tea," Amy shouted. She wove her way through the room to stand before the spectral figures. "You are strong. Together, we will break free." Just then, the shadows began to encroach, dark limbs creeping at the edges, howling with rage. "You're too late. They belong to me," the shadowy figure shrieked. "No!" Amy yelled, stepping forward, fueled by the collective strength of the children's hope. "You're wrong. Fear doesn't bind them, love does." The words ignited a flicker in the children's eyes. Amy reached out to them, extending her hands. "Hold on to me. We can do this together." They clasped her hands, cold but brightened by the connection, their fears a weight on her shoulders, but their spirits a beacon in the darkness. The shadows writhed, blustering angrily. "Dare to defy me?" the figure roared, surging forward, but Amy stood firm, her heart thundering. "Together. On 3. She cried, 1, 2, 3. In that moment, the children's laughter erupted, crystalline and pure, cutting through the encroaching darkness. The power of their collective hope shattered the gloom like glass, and a blinding light surged from their hearts, freeing them from their chains. In a final explosion, the darkness howled, shattering like brittle glass. And then silence enveloped the school, for the first time untainted by despair. She blinked, surrounded by children, their faces shining with relief and gratitude. "You did it. You saved us," they cried, dancing in the muffled light of dawn that now spilled through the broken windows. Tears of joy streamed down Amy's cheeks. The fear that had haunted her for so long melted away, leaving warmth in its wake. "We can rebuild," she whispered, an ephemeral promise lingering in the air. As they filed out of the school, hand in hand, Amy turned back one last time, knowing that the shadows had been thwarted, but understanding a truth that would always remain: darkness would always try to creep back, but she would not forget. They had faced it together, and now they would walk into the light, and in Maplewood, where manicured lawns and picket fences painted a picture of idyllic living, a new chapter dawned. One where fear did not hold dominion. The goodbye weighed heavy, but the triumph lingered, a testament to all they had fought to reclaim. With hearts full of hope, they stepped into the golden sunrise, ready to embrace whatever came next. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning of many tales yet to be told. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive story. Smash that like button now to let the algorithm know you want more. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What did you think of Amy's journey? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.